I have been watching you look for a sign, and the sign has been on my hand the entire stretch. Not on its way. Not under review. Not parked in heaven until you have proven holy enough to deserve a glimpse. Already cut into the palm extending toward you in this very minute. Lean in. Before these few minutes are over, allow me to show you why the proof you have been begging for has been quieter than you assumed. And let me read you a sentence I once gave to a tired old apostle. A sentence built to silence the part of you still wondering whether my love for you is real or only a hope you have been talking yourself into. The sign you have been looking for is the scar I chose to keep. I see you. The dread that I might not actually be sending you signs sits among the oldest weights stacked in your chest, and that weight has ridden with you long enough that you have stopped naming it out loud. A daughter spending years asking me for a single clear answer and feeling only a soft draft through the curtain. Her honest heart starting to wonder if the draft was just the heater. A son keeping vigil at a hospital bedside through a long night, straining for any whisper from my side of the wall. And whatever arrives sounds so faint, he cannot tell to this hour whether the whisper was real. A widow lighting one candle for a husband, asking for some small confirmation that the man she loved is held, while the wax goes down without a thunderclap to seal the question. A young one taught her entire life that God speaks only to deserving believers, keeping score against herself every Friday afternoon as the rent of her standing. An older one long since done with asking, because asking and never getting back felt like a humiliation he could no longer carry. Not one of those quiet rooms sits outside my sight. Each unanswered ask has been received in full. Not one mishandled. Not one mislaid by the pierced hand of my son. Your morning talk with me has grown shorter, not because longing faded, but because the longing felt too humiliating to keep voicing into a kitchen that seemed to be returning only its own silence. Receive this point. Your longing was not humiliating. Your longing was your soul confessing how badly it wants to be loved by me. I have never once recoiled from your asking. I have only stood near, waiting for you to recognize the shape of the gift already inside the room. This is the secret you have not yet been told. Signs do not arrive in the form you have been trained to expect. A common voice taught you that a sign was a parking spot opening up, a check arriving on the right day, a symptom disappearing in the right week. Such small mercies are real, and I do send them, but they are not the central sign. They are decorations on something older, something deeper, something costlier. My deepest sign is the body of my son. My deepest sign is a hand that was nailed for you and is now reaching toward you across the room you are sitting in. Lift your eyes for one breath toward the place where the light in your room is coming from. Not because the light is the sign, because lifting the gaze is the posture of someone who is finally ready to look at what has been there all along. No ceiling will glow, no lamp will flicker. A body lifting its eyes will simply remember that there is an above, and the above has been holding the room for as long as the room has existed. Stay with the lifted gaze for one slow breath. Then let your eyes return to the screen. Something inside you has already shifted that you cannot quite name yet. I have not gone silent. I have been speaking in a register that runs both louder than thunder and quieter than the human ear has been trained to register. A bus stop stranger smiling at you on your worst Wednesday, me passing through. A line from a song that broke through on the highway alone, me leaning into the driver's seat. A long-lost contact suddenly thinking of you and dialing. A postcard delivered from the wounded hand. An overnight dream depositing one word you did not own the day before. A note pushed beneath your door. Strange calm arriving in the very hour you were certain you would shatter. My exhale filling the room. Every one of those was a signal. You missed most of them, not because they were withheld, but because you kept scanning for fireworks in a sky that was only ever going to give you constellations. This dread of divine silence did not assemble itself within you on its own. Someone seeded it. A childhood voice insisted that God conversed only with impressive believers and left the ordinary ones to improvise. A pulpit insisted that authentic faith only registered through dreams and visions, and that anything subtler than that did not yet qualify as faith. A peer reported a sensational experience, and you walked home embarrassed because nothing of the kind had ever interrupted your own kitchen. A worried elder explained that the disciples hearing from me were always the ones fasting longer, praying louder, suffering better, and the conclusion lodged inside your young chest, with nobody needing to spell it out, was that your craving for a signal proved you had not yet earned one. Not one teacher among them was speaking from inside me. A handful cared for you in a worn-out fashion and were forwarding a dim image somebody once handed them. Others leveraged your craving to keep you scrambling after products they could sell. Both kinds of source produced the very same counterfeit portrait. A God hiding on purpose, picking favorites among the dramatic, rewarding loud believers while overlooking quiet ones. Brushes that painted that portrait were never dipped in the pigment of heaven. Tilt that canvas face down for the remainder of this hour. Allow me to describe how I actually speak to the ones I love. At some point in your formation, you were taught that my signs would always be unmistakable. A burning bush, a pillar of fire, a voice from a cloud. Every quiet day after became a small disappointment. You read about Moses on the mountain and concluded that your kitchen at 6 in the morning was not holy enough to carry that kind of weight. So your asking shrank. So your listening got distracted. Years went by and you developed a small bitter sentence so many of my tired children carry. He does not speak to people like me. That is not me. That has never been me. A picture you have been carrying in your chest of a God who reserves his signs for the impressive ones. For monks, for missionaries, for believers who can quote chapters you cannot, was sketched by people who did not know my hands well. Some of those people meant kindness and were honestly passing on a picture they had been given. Others needed your sense of disqualification to keep you small inside their system. Either way, the picture is wrong. Set it down. Lean it against the wall for a few breaths. I've been writing in a different alphabet entirely, on a different surface entirely, and I want to bring you to that surface now. My most permanent sign to the human race is not written in fire or thunder. It is written in flesh. I carved it into a body 2,000 years ago, and it has not faded a single line in the centuries since. I left the marks of the nails on the hands of my son after I raised him. They did not heal smooth. I could have raised him with skin as unmarked as a child's, and no one would have argued with his authority. I chose otherwise. I brought him out of the grave carrying the wounds on purpose. Those scars are not failures of the resurrection. Those scars are the resurrection's signature. I want to remind you of a moment soon after that morning. One of my son's closest friends was missing the first time he appeared. Others kept telling that friend with shining faces what they had seen, and his honest heart did what honest hearts do. It asked for proof. He spoke his question into a Friday afternoon that probably felt as quiet to him as your kitchen feels to you on the worst day of your week. 8 days of unbelief, the way you carry yours. Then on the 9th day, my son returned to the room and walked straight to him. Put your finger here. See my hands. There was no scolding in my voice. There was no shame. There was a body, a wounded body, a risen body. The proof of the love was the wound the love had been willing to take. Press the back of one hand into the palm of the other slowly until you feel the resistance of one meeting the give of the other. Hold the contact for one quiet breath, then release. That small meeting is a faint echo of the hand reaching toward you from the other side of 2 millennia. A hand offered to that doubting friend is the same hand still being offered to your doubting hour. Marks are still in the same place. An invitation is still the same invitation. Notice that the part of you holding the doubt was not asked to leave the room first. It was asked to come closer. So come closer. Doubt is welcome in the company of a wounded hand. Walk with me now toward a single line I once spoke through an apostle who had stopped trying to prove himself by anything other than the marks his obedience had cost him. He was old by the time he picked up the pen for this letter. A man whose body was failing, whose congregations had been infiltrated by competing voices. I had brought him through more than one shipwreck, more than one prison cell, more than one near drowning. He had been writing letters across the Mediterranean to communities he loved, and a particular group in Galatia had been confused by traveling teachers insisting that the real proof of belonging to me had to look a certain way. A particular ritual, a particular credential, a particular performance that would settle the question of who was authentically mine. Those traveling teachers had the right vocabulary. They could quote scriptures. They could perform religious motions with elegance. They demanded that the believers in Galatia conform to a visible mark on the body as the proof of their faithfulness. And the believers were beginning to wonder whether they had been wrong to trust the simpler word they first received. So my servant wrote back. He went back over the gospel patiently. He defended the freedom they had been given. And at the very end of the letter, when his secretary had laid down the pen and he picked it up himself with the heavy hand of a tired man, he set down one last sentence to settle the question of credentials forever. Hear what I had him write. Galatians, chapter 6, verse 17. From now on, let no one cause me trouble, for I bear on my body the marks of Jesus. Walk through it with me, slowly. Each phrase carries more weight than a hurried reading can lift. From now on, notice the finality. He is done arguing. He is not asking for a hearing. He has spent his life defending a gospel he did not need to keep proving. And he is closing the file. A tired father's voice in the doorway, telling the children in the house that the question of who he is no longer needs to be discussed. From now on, some of you have been letting your worth be debated by voices that have no right to a vote anymore. Close the file with him. Let no one cause me trouble. Read the next phrase. Demanding voices around him had been demanding more proof, demanding more performance, demanding more compliance. My servant says no. His asking is closed. He is not refusing to serve. He is not refusing to love. He is refusing to keep submitting his identity to the verification systems of people who do not know what they are looking at. A believer's body is not a courtroom. Receive that small permission. You do not have to keep submitting your worth to the verdict of voices that were never qualified to read what is written on you. 4. That next word is small and load-bearing. 4. Because. Here comes the reason. Here comes the credential that ends the argument. Listen carefully. His credential is not a quote, not a position, not a vision, not a dramatic experience. His credential is something on his body. I bear on my body. Hear it. Not in my library, not in my memory, not in my ministry resume. On my body, scars from the floggings, marks from the beatings, lines from the shipwrecks, crooked places from wounds that never healed straight, a visible record of a life that has been spent loving me in real conditions. His credential is the cost. His credential is what the love cost him to keep. The marks of Jesus. Hear the last phrase. He does not say the marks of my faithfulness. He does not say the marks of my ministry. He says the marks of Jesus. Wounds on his old body are not his trophies. They are echoes of the wounds on my son's body. Scars on his arms are visible proof that he has been walking with a wounded Savior. And walking with a wounded Savior leaves a mark on the walker too. His credential of belonging is not a strength he produced. It is a wound he was willing to receive. A mark is on him because the mark is first on Christ. As I once also said in the upper room, put your finger here, see my hands. Proof of my love has always been a body willing to be marked for the beloved. Those wounds did not embarrass my son. He showed them. He shows them still. Wounds I asked my servant to bear did not embarrass him either. He named them. He names them still through letters that travel through your screen 2 millennia later. A wound is the signature. A wound is the sign. Return now with me to the question I opened these few minutes with. Why has the suspicion that I do not really send you signs proven so hard to remove from your ribcage? Here is the answer. Because nobody ever told you. In vocabulary, your nervous system could actually feel that the deepest proof in the cosmos is already cut into the body of my son. Smaller mercies for which you have been begging through the days are real, and I do send them. But they are footnotes attached to a wound that was opened 20 centuries back and has remained open as the central proof ever since. Not on its way, not in review. Already torn into the palm of the one holding his hand toward you. And that wound demands no payment from your character before it lets you see it. If a sentence here is touching some quiet hinge in you, drop one word into the conversation below. Sign. Let it stand as a small flag planted right next to the truth that the wound has been broadcasting itself the entire stretch. Tucked above this video, inside the pinned slot, 7 brief notes from me are already lined up. One to greet each of the next 7 dawns inside your inbox. Deliver the second a soft consent, unfastens the gate. Receive them. Now before you stand up, here is a small practice you can tuck into the ordinary cadence of the days ahead. Each time the inner voice rises again, that voice murmuring, "He has gone quiet. He is not sending you anything." The asking landed in an empty hall. Pause for one heartbeat and ask yourself a single question. Is the wound still in his palm? Speak the question without volume. There is no need to fight the inner voice. Simply ask. The answer comes back yes. The answer has always come back yes. The answer keeps coming back yes, regardless of what any given afternoon feels like. Then exhale a touch longer than you inhaled and step into the next ordinary minute with the answer folded against the inside of your shirt. Layer 2 of the same practice when your afternoon allows it. Once the answer has come back, do not bolt past it. Stay inside the yes for 3 unhurried breaths. Many among you will rush right by the relief because relief is a territory you have not dwelt in for some time. Move into the territory. Let the bones across your shoulders register the truth that your standing with me is not a performance you owe me. Your standing was bought with a wound I was willing to take. A wound completed on a Roman crossbeam 20 centuries back. A wound still on the palm, extending toward you right where you sit. Layer 3 runs softer still. Each time a small mercy surfaces inside the day. A stranger being kind at the exact hour the loneliness was loudest. An old memory of being loved rising into your kitchen out of nowhere. The unexplained return of a friend's call after months of distance. Refuse to file it under coincidence. Speak instead, in whatever volume the room allows. The wound is showing. That one sentence is an entire posture. It trains your eye to spot the small, frequent ways the pierced hand keeps letting the wound briefly touch the world you are crossing. Each small mercy is the scar becoming visible for a beat inside an ordinary life. Honor it. Stay inside it. Maybe you have been told that real believers get visions while ordinary ones get nothing, and you have started to suspect you are disqualified because nothing visionary has ever interrupted your kitchen. Hear me. Drama is already finished. It happened on a hill outside Jerusalem on a Friday afternoon 2 millennia back. Thunder was given there. Earthquake was felt there. My most dramatic sign of love toward you was completed and is now permanently lodged in the body of my son. And there is no requirement that you stage a new spectacle inside your own life in order to qualify for it. Only one move is being asked of you. Step close enough to recognize what has been turned toward you the entire time. Whichever among you is grieving a child who has wandered into a life beyond your reach, receive this also. Your child who has stopped calling has not stopped being held by me. Same hand that wears the scar holds your child by the wrist even now. They have not slipped past the wound. They live inside the same love that bled for them. Pray on. Stay in the chair you have warmed with so many small askings. A hand that took the nails will not loosen its grip on what it has already purchased. Maybe a slow illness has tired you down to the point of reading the slowness of healing as a hushed no from me. Receive this also. The healing surfacing in you may not register on any imaging report just yet. A portion of what I am doing is unfolding inside the deeper chamber of the soul, because the soul is the chamber that must be rearranged first, and the body shifts only once the chamber beneath it has been re-aired. My wound is the proof that your suffering does not run beneath my notice. I do not love from across a riverbank. I love out of a body that knows the kind of wounding yours has known. Whatever palm is reaching toward your hospital bed is a palm acquainted with the inside feel of nails. If some voice across your past pretended to speak on my behalf and told you the silence around your life was your own fault, hear this with great care. Such a voice was never carrying my word. The quiet you have lived inside was not the discipline of an angry God. The quiet was the working chamber of a patient father already speaking in a register deeper than the voice you kept straining for. Loosen the inherited reading. Silence was never absence. Silence was the room where a wound was being held out toward you, waiting on you to look at the palm rather than at the ceiling. Many among you have been faithfully serving a community without dramatic confirmation. A small group leader, a quiet caregiver, an unseen volunteer. Receive this clearly. Marks on your tired body are not embarrassments. They are echoes. Each small wound absorbed for somebody you love carries the same kind of imprint my old apostle was naming. Anyone who walks with a wounded Savior is walking near enough that the walking leaves a mark on the walker too. Your credential is not missing from your life. Your credential is sitting on the very fatigue you keep apologizing for. Perhaps a religious community turned on you somewhere along the road. Hear this too. Bruises you carry from that exit were never bruises of my judgment. Those were bruises inflicted by humans, borrowing my name to advance agendas of their own. Set those bruises on the very palm that bears the wound. A wounded palm understands intuitively what unjust wounding feels like from the inside. Bring the rejection of that congregation right into the upper room. The risen body standing in the doorway will not flinch at what was done to you. Out of his own wounds, healing will be spoken into yours. Allow that before you walk on into the next ordinary stretch of the day. Perhaps at this very hour your life is moving through ease, a peaceful home, a body cooperating, a stretch of unusual lightness. Receive a final word before I close. Ease holds a quiet risk inside it. From within ease, an air can drift into the mistake of treating comfort as if comfort were the love itself. Comfort is not the love. Comfort is one parcel the love sends. On the morning comfort thins, the love is still in the room because the love was finished on the cross long before any comfort of yours was ever arranged. A wound will still ride on my palm on the day the weather of your life tips. A scar runs deeper than the weather of any single month. Some of you are listening through tears at this very moment because something in this language has already begun to land. Tears are welcome here. Tears are a body's way of admitting what the mind has not yet been able to articulate. Let them come down without interpreting them. Tears do not slow down the answer. Tears are often the answer arriving with no need for words. The wound on my hand has always understood salt water. Salt water is what poured from the same wound when the spear opened his side, and salt water pours easily from a soul that has been kept dry for too long. Cry as long as the body needs to cry, then keep listening. Receive that line one last time, the way an old friend says a true thing at the door before stepping out. The sign you have been looking for is the scar I chose to keep. Stitch that sentence into the lining of the next ordinary days you walk. Murmur it at a red light. Press it against your sternum whenever the old anxiety about a silent God tries to drag its chair back to your table. A sentence stays true whether your week confirms it or not. A hand does not require your verification. A mark does not need your supervision. Both have been mine to keep, and mine to keep means kept forever. As an early glimpse of the wound finally surfaces inside your days, do not be alarmed by the softness of its arrival. Many of my works under the surface of a tired life come in without trumpets. One ordinary morning, the panic about whether you are loved unclenches for reasons your mind cannot reconstruct. One ordinary afternoon, an old hurt rises but no longer floods you, because something underneath has gradually worn smooth the rock the hurt used to rebound off. One ordinary evening you slip into sleep without auditing every reason you might be disqualified. Each occurrence is the scar surfacing for a beat. Inside an ordinary life, honor the surfacing. The wound has been present the whole way. You are only now learning to see what the palm has been extending the entire stretch. Bring one quiet inhalation up through the nostrils. Pause at the top for a beat. Let the air leave gently, with the outflow running a fraction longer than the inflow. A drawn-out exhale informs the nervous system that the proof is not about to be pulled away. It informs the rib cage that the pierced palm has not stepped back from its station near the door. A breath that small is the tiniest yes a body can offer in the felt closeness of a wounded love, and the breath reaches me with the same weight any articulate prayer ever carried. A pair of such breaths will carry you kindly back into the portion of the day you set aside when you sat down to listen. The returning you will be slightly different. The walls of your room will appear unchanged. The pierced palm will be unchanged. Only the chest of the one walking back will have eased. because the ribcage will have at last absorbed what was true the entire way. Amen. If any sentence in these minutes nested into a hushed corner inside you, 7 brief notes from me are already lined up inside the pinned space below this video. 1 to greet each of the next 7 dawns inside your inbox, arriving the second a soft yes unlatches the gate. Open them. Pass this along to anyone still quietly assuming the silence over their life is a verdict on who they are. Hit subscribe so the message after this lands ahead of the old anxiety. No one was ever meant to cross a wounded world without the closeness of a wounded love.